This is the talk of Music City Real Estate.
Welcome back to another episode of the Talk of Music City Real Estate,
where we educate and motivate all things real estate.
My name is Monty Moore with Realty One Group Music City.
Hey, and I'm Carey Ann with CMG Financial and my mortgage team.
Every week we'll be posting a new episode chock full of Nashville real estate value.
Yes, and you can follow along and subscribe at talkmusiccity.com.
Do you have a question for us? Ask away at questions@talkmusiccity.com. That's questions at talkmusiccity.com.
Monty!
Carey Ann, so good to see you today, and we got a really important topic, and we got Mr. Jason Hoover in the house who's going to help us share it. Good to see you, Jason.
Same here. Good to see you guys.
Hey, thanks for last week and sharing the importance of a business plan, man.
Yeah. So important. I'm
so looking forward to hearing the whole part of it, you know. This is a real passion of mine because, you know, it opened my eyes up so much when somebody told me about having a business plan. I'd never had one before, and I just kind of struggled in the dark, you know. To get clarity is a beautiful thing, and that's one way we can do that and help create our reality. So before we get in today's topic, which is getting back to basics, I mean, we're going to, as I shared earlier, I really like to spend a little more time helping our agents get back to some of the basics that we've forgotten, you know, because that market was coming at us, you know, over the last couple of years, and we're pivoting, is your favorite tune. We're pivoting where we're going to be going after them more so, but in a methodical process, some long-term, like farming, like we're going to talk today, and some shorter, of course, by marketing and so forth, but it's a little bit of a change of a posture, I think, you know, coming up here for those who want to better get their arms around the change that's taking place. But before we do that, I'd like you guys to look at the sheet that I gave you, because NAR, National Association of Realtors, has created a website that I want to make sure everybody knows about, and that's called competition.realtor.
Okay.
Competition.realtor. And this is kind of a knee-jerk, I think, reaction of some of the challenges that NAR has been going through. You know, there's these class action lawsuits, and there's some challenges possibly coming up towards the realtor. And one of those challenges, one of those efforts being made out there is to try to do away with MLS. And so I love what they've created here, that again, it's available at competition.realtor. But it says there's two columns here that we're looking at, folks. One of them says what local broker marketplaces do for you, and they're referring to MLS being local broker marketplaces is what they're saying the MLS stands for. Okay. And versus a world without local broker marketplaces. And real quickly, Jason, would you read a couple of them so the folks know what we're talking about?
Yeah, like the verified, trusted, detailed, and accurate property information, as opposed to unverified, inaccurate, and unreliable information. You
know, the thing that comes to mind here, and no offense to anybody in the commercial real estate world, but the commercial industry doesn't have truly a common database. I mean, they've got LoopNet and a couple other ones, you know, but they don't have the luxury of dialing up MLS, you know, and right. Seeing everything available. Just as an example, this office and our Berry Hill office, both of those, we reached out to a local commercial broker, different one each time, and said, hey, this is what we're looking for. And, you know, they made a few phone calls, because that world, it seems like they trying to keep things to their chest and not really, I mean, again, they don't have a common database. But anyway, both locations were found by me driving up and down the streets. I mean, Connie and I actually, the Berry Hill office, we spent, months just driving. And neither one, this office or that one, were in the MLS. In LoopNet or anything else. And that's what we'd be looking at without an MLS. I mean, if you haven't, as a residential agent, if you haven't looked in the commercial world, you're not sure what I'm talking about maybe, but you ought to try it sometime. It's a whole different world.
Well, go ahead. Well, I didn't mean to step on your toes there. The very last one, reading through these, that's really powerful. You know, it says level playing field between large and small brokerages.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
As opposed to markets become broker controlled.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a huge win for sellers.
Oh, it's a huge win for the consumer. Absolutely. You know, there's last I counted, and I think there's more than that now, there's 1,152 offices here in Middle Tennessee, real estate offices, 1,152.
That's a lot.
So you can imagine how many of those 1,152 have one or two people.
Yeah.
Those one or two people wouldn't have a chance of doing business if it was broker controlled,
Right.
because the big ones that have all the inventory, and they wouldn't have any information to share.
And just looking at possibilities is that your house would not be seen to the majority of the public.
No.
And going down that rat hole, I mean, the brokerages could market to their own clients.
Yeah, I mean, again, the market 2 years ago, we'd be maybe having a different conversation, or saying that there's not even a time to put it on MLS, right, to have them even worry about it. But now you want as many eyeballs looking at it. I mean, that's the only way to keep a good, strong, market and the competition, et cetera, and allow for negotiations.
Their list starts here with largest database of available homes versus no centralized of available homes. So anyway, folks, be sure and look up competition.realtor. And check out the details that NAR has provided for you. This is just one little page. There's a whole site there that I want to encourage everybody to go to. We're on a broker owner meeting with our Realty One Group International last week, and they pointed out this data site and encouraged us to let people know about it. And the reason why you need to know about this is so if you ever find ourselves in a situation where we're voting to have MLS or not to, or whatever, because I think when it all shakes out, we may evolve into something like that. Be sure you understand why we want a local MLS, okay? It's for the consumer first, because that's what we're all here for, and then for our professional abilities second, for sure.
Love it. So
Anyway,
you're talking about back to the basics.
back
I
to
love
basics.
that. Not to age us, but we're doing all the things today that we did way, way back in the day. Isn't it kind of funny? And so those folks that got in the business, 10 years or less, I mean, interest rates were going down for many, many, many years. And not to say that because rates are up, we're doing different things, but because rates are up and, people's comfort levels have changed, we're doing all the things, to make sure that our brand is shining bright. We're making sure that we're creating more comfort with all the tools from way back in the day from a mortgage standpoint, and then how do you make connections? We talked in the previous call about, if the percentage of conversion is less, you have to talk to more people, right? And that's not because you're bad at what you do. It's just because the amount of people that are looking to do something is just less, right? Or their comfort level is not there. Yeah, I love our data man over here.
It's all about the numbers.
It's all about the numbers. And so love to hear.
Cape at home.
I love to talk about, one of the basic things that we should all be doing still.
Yeah, one of these, I mean, I know you do this in a different way. You have probably real estate offices that you farm.
Yeah,
as a mortgage professional. There's some that that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about as a real estate professional, stepping back and looking at, okay, and it might be proximity to where you live, or it might be a price point, or it might just be a favorite neighborhood. But the topic of farming, a lot of people don't really get into the farming because, why, Jason? Probably because it's a long-term play. It's a long play. It's
a long-term play. I mean, you don't see the fruits of your labor immediately. And let's just face it, it takes a lot of hustle.
Well, it takes a commitment, a serious commitment. But what I want to share today on this topic, I think if you look at the numbers, I think it makes, if you look at the data, Mr. Data Man, I think it makes a lot of sense. So we're gonna start with it's 5 things to know before choosing a geographic farm. And I want to give credit to Jimmy Burgess on Inman, and we talked about Inman last week about the importance of checking that out. But here one of his recent podcasts, I guess you call it, videos that he talked about was this, and it starts with evaluate total sales volume for an area or neighborhood. If you're going to farm a neighborhood, as in other words, make sure there's enough turnover in that neighborhood that it makes sense for you to spend the money and involvement in that. Now, have you and Mindy, I don't want to put you on the spot, Jason, but have you and Mindy done much in the way of farming?
So we did in the past, and where we live now, you need a certain amount of
certain size.
And our neighborhood is so small. That doesn't mean I can't go out and do it somewhere else. But we have found that focusing on, we have our 3 main lead generation.
Sure.
And it's just, that's not one of them. But I mean, it's definitely a fantastic one, especially if it's your neighborhood and you live right there.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's always an insult when you see another sign go up in your neighborhood, you know?
Right.
But, I'll never forget, Jason, and this is probably a good point to make this. I think even though I knew it, I think I learned from you about the idea of having 3 legs under your business. Okay, It takes 3 legs to make a solid stool. Try to put it on 1 or 2 legs, and at the same time, we don't want, because there's so many different directions and avenues that a new person can run down. You end up going nowhere because you try to go everywhere.
You're not being effective at all.
Not being effective at all. So those 3 are, first of, we're building a circle of influence, of course, and then the second one, internet type business, and the third one, as an example, would be events like open houses and so forth. Well, one of those legs could be, again, I want to encourage that mindset, though, that it's the long play. In other words, if I were going to be starting a farm someplace, I wouldn't put all my carrots in that basket. I would make sure that's my long play. Just like putting a billboard on a highway. That's not for immediate business unless you've got a hell of a call to action. That's called institutional advertising. It's great branding and name awareness.
And what I tell the agents is, it's not a piece. I mean, it's not the whole piece. It's a piece of the whole part. Is that the billboard itself is not going to get you business, but the billboard in addition to your other marketing.
A couple of other things. One of them that gets more into your own home. Well, it starts with, number one is evaluate the total sales volume in the area to make sure that you've chosen an area. And it doesn't have to be a neighborhood. It can be a zip code or whatever. But, typically what we find is that a good neighborhood has about an 8 to 10% turnover rate. Okay, about 8 to 10%. So let's, one thing I did today before we got here is I printed out, as an example for people to follow along with, I printed out the neighborhood that most local agents have heard about, and that's Fieldstone Farms. Are you familiar with Fieldstone Farms? Are you familiar down Hillsborough Road? Well, the reason why Fieldstone Farms I call a bread and butter neighborhood, because first of all, there's 1,000 homes in there, I think, something like that. But they're also, in just doing a quick analysis, they fall in that category of 10% turnover. So if you look at what's happened in the last 12 months, currently there's 10 on the market. There's 103 have sold in the last 12 months. Okay, so 1,000. So they're right at that 10% number. Yeah. So in determining, when people think about, what does that look like in farming an area and making that kind of commitment? This particular example, he says you need to look at spending at least $2 a month per person. Well, and you choose a neighborhood like Fieldstone Farms, and that can, for a lot of folks, that's pretty expensive. Right. It's a couple $1,000.
Yeah, it's $24,000 a year.
Yeah, that's $24,000 a year. But he backs it up with, let's do the math, okay? So the average sale price in here, according to this CMA here, is over $700,000. But part of the trickiness, I think, in working numbers right now, and I defer to the numbers guy here, but I don't know if the last 12 months are accurate numbers, so I'm going to be more on the conservative side, okay?
Yeah, you need to.
So let's say the average sale price is $600,000 in a neighborhood like this, okay? Let's say, even though this example talks about a 3% commission, let's say that the average commission is 2.5, and probably to be safer, I think you probably should use a number of 2%, but let's use 2.5. 2.5 on 100 homes selling at $600,000. That's $1.5 million, okay, on total side of the listing side. But if you've done a good job, those that you've won, you're going to get the purchase of a lot of those as well. So that number is probably more like, at least a couple of million, if not at least a couple of million. Yeah. Okay. So if we look at the investment here, and going on with that same thought, $2 per household times 1,000 homes equals $2,000 a month, or $24,000 a year. If we captured just 10%, and I think that, and again, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself because there's some other key elements here, but while we're talking about numbers, I wanted to talk about that. That's a potential, just 10% of that market is $150,000. That's that's just on the listing side. So can I afford to spend, and this is what we have to talk about when we're talking about our business plan, is okay, if I do this and I walk it out like I'm supposed to, and I hang in there and I look at the long play and I do the things, I do the events, I do the postcards, I do the things that are going to get me down the road, 10% of the market is a $24,000 investment worth $150,000 return. Probably so.
Yeah, if you're going to do all the things.
That's the key part. Okay, you got to do all the things.
I think what causes agents to be hesitant on that is because it's not guaranteed, and that's when we, going back to the very first thing that I teach new agents in our foundations class is the very first thing we talk about is shifting the mindset from a W-2 to a 1099.
Right. You've got to be risky, gritty, right? Do all the things. We have to change our mindset on that. And I also think confidence goes, when you were talking about wake every morning up with confidence, there's competitors coming at you left and right, and you drive into your neighborhood and you see a different sign. And so it's like, oh, woe is me. I can't be the person that shines bright in this neighborhood. Yes, you can. It's just up to you, right? It's up to you.
And that is, number 2 here, by the way, Carey Ann, you must have read my notes here. Is there a dominant agent in this market?
Oh, yeah. I didn't see that one.
Because if there is, if you're going to a market where somebody kind of owns it, they live there, they maybe were a school teacher and taught the kids, or something, there's some different scenarios, then it's probably a good idea to maybe consider, I'm not saying you can't do it, but I am saying that it's going to be a little harder to get some traction.
Well, because they've already done all the things to get them to where they are, right? So you're climbing up a little steeper of a hill. But again, they maybe don't do your research, do all your research, because I've met people that, yes, they're the number one, but they're about to get out of the business or this market. They're like, you know what? I'm just not going to work any harder. Yeah. So I'm going to hand the baton over. Who wants it? Right. Type of thing. There's a lot of those opportunities. When you think about it, in a down market, this is the time to grow market share, right? And to really go out there and get more business.
So the name of the game here is brand recognition. All right. That's what you're doing here is you're trying to build your brand, your name. You're not building Realty One Group. You're building Monty Moore. You're building, Carey Ann. So when people think real estate, they think of you. Well, and to scientifically back it up, there's a saying that neurons that fire together wire together. And when they fire together, that's when they see your name. So it's firing. So you want those neurons to fire as many times as possible so that they wire together, and that's what creates that memory and recognition. They can pull it back up. So you need your signs in the yard. You need those open houses. You need the postcards. You need the events. I mean, every single thing you can to get people's neurons firing.
Yeah, got milk. 2 words, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it sold more milk, and people, and they found, if you hear the research on it, they ended up everybody took the saying, got this, got that type of thing. What it doesn't have to be complicated is what we're saying, right? Absolutely. It has to be consistent, and you have to do it and say it every single day if you want anything in life, right? I mean, that's just the outcome. And like you said, you don't have to. My neighborhood, I'm not going to farm, because it's not the right one for me, but it's not going to stop me from going down the street and farming another neighborhood. Who's stopping you, right? You can do whatever you want to do. But I will tell you that being a recipient of the farming mail, I get something from Florida, which is really catchy. And what you need, and I think it's really catchy. I get something local, you didn't turn my head. So take a moment and research what's going to turn the audience's head. If you're just going to be the same old, it just becomes another art piece. That's the postcard you sent me in the mail, right? Be different. They talk about bulky mail. I open that pen company's pen up every month. I get a pen every month. That's so nice of you. I don't know if I'm paying for it or what's happening. It has my name on it. It's great. But I open it. It's bulky. It makes noise, right? It's a different color. That I open, right? And so think about being different if you are going to farm. If you're going to spend the $2, spend it on something that makes me
and you've got to do multiple things.
Ignite my wires or whatever you just said there.
Ignite my wires.
Well, and that's how those wires get fused together. Is there's not just multiple touches, but different touches. Okay,
right, exactly.
It could be the signage. It could be the open house that's a big fanfare. It could be an event for kids. That there's a hayride or something, or it could be that we're parking a dumpster for not trash day, but
junk day or something.
Clean out your garage day or whatever.
Right.
But back those things up. But I think the hardest part of this whole thing, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but the hardest thing I think in this whole perspective of a farm, a geographic farm, is paying the price to be there long term.
Right.
I think people give up hope. I think there's few things that I think that are definitely absolutely worth it that are not more difficult to pursue, because you've got to be okay with the fact that 6 months and you haven't done anything. You haven't seen any results in that. And I think that's the hardest part. So I think anybody thinking about farming, one thing for sure you got to do, first of all, you got to have your own commitment, but then you've got to get your spouse's or your family's commitment as well, because that's going to be a serious outgo that you're going to have to weigh out ahead of time and have realistic expectations. But know this, those who will pay the price to develop a farm, it's like printing money in the future if they just stay then. It's like you put all your inertia in getting that momentum, then it just takes your hand on it regularly to keep that momentum.
Yeah, I mean, you can modernize your farm concepts too. I mean, you could take it from the physical community to an online basis as well. So you're touching from that standpoint, and also, in person with, little happies and things like that. I mean, there's different things you can do. But if you're talking about trying to stay top of mind, for when they want to sell or purchase, you need to be there,
right.
Because there are people that we call because they've been our dentist for so long, and that's who we go to. Whether we've been the dentist in the last year or 8 years, we're still going back to probably the same dentist type of thing. From real estate, if the percentages say the majority don't call back the real estate agent that they've worked with in the past, well, then you need to be in their face, right?
Yeah,
and you need to be using the terms.
It's that long term.
Yeah, the consistency.
Over.
You don't need to be in the friend zone, right? Because when you become just in the friend zone, like it's just another art piece. I'm just seeing what are you doing to trigger my mind, right? What are you doing to create curiosity to make me pause and think about maybe selling my house? I'm not saying anything about the just listed or just sold and all that, and that's do you for you, but I think we all can take it up a notch. You can do something different that would really turn ahead.
And I'll tell you this is with this downturn in the market, you're going to have agents pulling money out. So right now is the optimal time for you to dive in.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's time. You can take market share because you got less people in there playing.
I've been in a few meetings, which you can see who's hungry right now. They've allotted the dollars to go in a forward motion, to plan that in 6, 9, whatever many months, there'll be a different world, maybe, you know. And so this is your time to step in. These markets really create careers, I think.
They do.
It launched mine, and I'm very grateful for a previous market because someone told me that was smarter than me, that was at the table I was at, to go do all the things. Don't hesitate. Push forward. And that really made a difference in my business. So.
Yeah, and I think if you hear anything today from this topic, hear this, that during shifts, there's opportunity. And that in that opportunity is going to be for those who are standing firm and committed to their, to the accomplishment of that, because there's a lot of folks that are really worried right now. There really are. And I think we just, again, I go back to the pivoting, just understand that there's a huge opportunity around the corner here for those who decide to stick with this and make this happen.
Yeah, I mean, I met a builder the other day who lives down the street here who drives an hour and a half every day. And
that's a long ways.
Yeah, but he knows, he's done all his calculations. He knows that he's in a market that is going to produce something grand for his family here, right? So what I'm saying is, and I drive a lot right now, if the market is not what you want it to be in your own little footstep or area, you go where you can create excitement, you can turn heads, and you can provide, opportunities there. There's lots and lots of opportunities. You just have to keep your eyes open and your ears open and go out and search for it, for sure.
Well, thanks, guys. I do want to challenge those out there watching this. If there's a topic that you want us to cover, let's talk about it. We between the three of us, we've covered, I think, about everything that we can imagine, but let us know what you're most curious about. I think getting back to the basics personally, I think is one of those things that we can't look over. I think that's probably part of the most important part. It starts with having that mental toughness, that self-confidence, that awareness, that coming from the right place, because you just have to know that you can't be moved by that fact that this is what you want to do. There's going to be thousands of homes sold, regardless of what the market's doing. Like we said earlier, and are you going to be there to help make that happen?
Yes.
Yeah, that's entirely up to you. But
yes, you are. There you are.
So good to see you guys.
Hey,
Same
thanks
here.
again, everybody, for joining us. Can't wait to have you back next week. You've been listening to the talk of Music City Real Estate.